Hey, I'm Kaylee, and today I'm going to share with you my second positive home birth story. My little one is about 10 months old now, so this was kind of a while ago, but I'm just now getting around to making some more videos, so I thought I would share with you. Background for me, I had a uncomplicated home birth with my first, and with my second, it was the same. I had such a wonderful experience. The labor itself and my healing process was super smooth and easy. Throughout my pregnancy with my midwife, I did not have any cervical checks. I didn't have invasive interventions. So as I got towards the end of my pregnancy, I was continuing to stay active and stay hydrated and make sure that I was nourishing my body. And I was pretty active with my toddler, so I feel like that contributed a lot to how fast my labor was. It was, I think, just under 6 hours, which was awesome, honestly. I felt baby drop down into my pelvis around 33 weeks, so I'm gonna kind of go week by week what I noticed. I have notes from forever ago. Around 35 weeks, I lost my mucus plug. In 38 and a half-ish weeks, I experienced something called prodromal labor, which I felt like it could have been real labor, early labor, when I was experiencing it, but I didn't read much into it. My intention with my second labor pregnancy situation was to sort of ignore it, if that makes any sense. I got really caught up in labor signs and symptoms and when and how it was going to happen with my first, because it was obviously really unknown to me. But with my second, I really wanted to avoid that because I felt like it really weighed on me mentally the first time around. So when I had this prodromal labor, I probably started having contractions around 10 or 11 at night, and they were mild, like I could kind of rest through them. It wasn't really noticeable, so I was just going to bed like normal. At some point, maybe a few hours later, maybe 1 a.m. or something like that, they picked up and I couldn't sleep through them anymore. So I just used my normal hypnobirthing with Anya like YouTube playlist. I got on my yoga ball. I tried to just rest. Basically, I was sitting on my yoga ball next to my bed and putting my elbows on the bed with my head down and just kind of like rocking and swaying and working through the contractions while still resting as much as I could. And eventually, a couple hours later, they just fizzled out. Nothing happened, and it was just like on to the next day. Surprisingly, I did not get very like disappointed by that. My midwife had mentioned that prodromal labor is pretty common with subsequent babies because of the body being able to prepare for something it's done before. So I just kind of took it in stride and went on with my life. And then about the next couple days after that, I lost more of my mucus plug. So it must have like reformed a bit, and then more of it came out the next time that my cervix had effaced or dilated or whichever happened. And then, let's see, just before 40 weeks or just at 40 weeks, I'm not sure which, because when they told me my due date, I let it go in one ear and out the other, because that was another sort of hyperfixation that I had with my first. My due date came and went with my first, and I was so devastated. I just could not take my mind off of it. I could not relax. So this time around, when they told me my due date, I was just like, whatever. And it must have served me well, because I was feeling pretty relaxed. So the same exact way that I had the prodromal labor was how my labor started, like my real labor started. So it was probably in the evening, sometime around 10 p.m. My daughter was asleep, we were getting ready for bed, and I started having contractions. So I tried to sleep through them like the first time. Eventually, they got to the point where I could not sleep through them anymore. And I'm trying to think, my son was born around 4:30. I think I called the midwife by 3. I was having contractions that kept me up And because I had already had the prodromal labor, I kind of wondered maybe this could be real labor. So I give my midwife a call, and she, noticed the way that I was acting through contractions over the phone. And she was like, I think maybe we should come, because it was at the point where I couldn't really talk through my contractions. There wasn't much, I guess, outside world interaction on my part. So once you get into that space while you're in labor, it's probably pretty likely that your baby will be coming soon. So my midwife is on her way. I was doing the same thing that I did initially with my prodromal labor. I was sitting on the birth ball next to the bed with my arms resting on the bed and leaned over. At some point I needed to get up and move, so I went into the living room. I think I was on my hands and knees, or I was on my elbows and my knees. Something about that position must have, helped the baby move down a bit. Sort of like, what is it, Miles circuit type of way, how you kind of let the baby go up and then back down into your pelvis so they can settle down a little bit more. So once I spent a little bit of time in the living room in that position, I just felt something urgent and I knew that I needed to get somewhere sturdy. At the time, we were living in an apartment, and our apartment had carpet. So something in my mom brain was like, this carpet's not gonna make it. So I go to the bed where we have the plastic sheet over the bed to protect it, and I feel more sturdy on the bed. And I just wanna make a side note here that I opted both times to not use a birth pool. I just don't feel stable in water like that. I'm not like really a water person. So it wasn't like something that I really cared to have. So I go to the bed, and I think I was laboring just on my side the whole time. I was on my left side, and I felt the pressure of pushing. I did not actively push at all. It wasn't like the first time around where I felt I needed to get the crowning and birth of the head especially over with as soon as possible. I was just letting it happen because I had a second degree tear with my first, and I did not want to tear this time around. So I did not actively push. I just let my body do the work, and that was honestly the best decision I could have made. I did not tear at all. I had maybe like a little bit of a, what do they call that? Abrasion. So backtrack. I'm laboring on my side. My mom shows up because my husband had called my mom after I called the midwife. My mom shows up, and my baby's head is already coming out. Like, the baby's crowning, midwife's not there. I'm chill. I don't know if my mom and Devin are chill, but they're there. And I'm just kind of off in my own world the whole time. I've got my little AirPods in, and I'm listening to Hypnobirthing with Anya, which I highly recommend because it's free and she has such a relaxing voice. But by the time my midwife got to the apartment, my baby was already like fully crowning. His head was pretty much out. But she gets there, baby's head is crowning. It's not like a crazy like rushing situation. It just is very relaxed, like, okay, this is happening. And I felt really calm and confident, so I'm sure that has something to do with it too. But my midwife gets there, and we kind of realize, and they let me know that the sac is still intact. So as my baby's head is crowning and coming down and kind of doing that like two steps forward, one step back thing, the amniotic sac is still, is it called an amniotic sac? So I think in a way that kind of cushioned the birth of my baby's head and all of that. I don't think it fully ruptured until shoulders came through. But if I had to compare my first and my second birth, this second birth was honestly as close to painless as you could experience, in my opinion. It was, at one point, I kind of paused. I think it was right after the head was born, I kind of paused and I was like, this is amazing. I love this. And I really do. I love giving birth. I could not ask for any more positive experiences giving birth. So my baby's born and the midwife is making sure that the sac is like off of his head and all of that, and she like pushes him up to me on my belly, and we didn't know the gender, so it was a surprise gender. That was super fun. I knew he was a boy the whole time, but it was still so exciting to find out that he was a boy. And my husband was the one that told me, and that was super sweet.
Did you see the gender?
No, we don't know yet.
Wait, look. Tell me. Can you tell? Oh. It is a boy. Oh my goodness.
So I pull him up to my chest and he's like floppy and blue. And I know that that's because he was basically born in his sac. So once babies are born, usually without the sac intact, their exposure to the outside air is what initiates the breathing. There's like a change in pressure and, you know, all the mechanisms that happen during birth kind of force your baby to breathe. So since he was born in the sac, he wasn't kind of ready, but it's within the normal range for there to be like several seconds, maybe up to a minute or two, where your baby doesn't breathe right after they're born. I rub his back and I'm talking to him and I'm staying calm, and he eventually, you know, gives out his little cries, and it was, you know, such a sweet moment because it's like, even though I felt calm and confident that everything was okay, because of the way that birth is portrayed in most media or even people that you know, they want to share their sort of horror stories with you. It's not seen as this like normal, beautiful thing where a baby is making this huge transition to the outside world from your womb. And it takes a minute. Like, we can't expect it to be all drama and craziness, but he cried and he was whimpering, and my husband told me that he was a boy, and it was just really sweet and calm. And eventually I found out that I did not tear, and that was honestly such a godsend for me and my healing. And my postpartum experience the second time around was worlds different than the first. And if you want a separate video about how I prepared for that, because my husband doesn't get paternity leave, and we have somewhat limited familial support, I would say. If you want a separate video on how I prepared for that and how I prepared my child and my home, just to make sure that we were ready and able to do the best that we could do with that plan, just let me know and I'll make that video. That is the story of my second home birth. It's really straightforward. It was like 6 hours. I am so grateful that it was uncomplicated and everything went smoothly, and we even had some, you know, other things that people might call complications, but as it turns out, these things are pretty common and normal and shouldn't be treated in a fearful way. So I hope this is a testament to those situations where you can see that things can look different and still be good. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.